Thanks. First of all, I'm pleased to be part of this great conference. Thanks so much, Marty, for inviting me to speak about the European pension outlook. To introduce myself, I'm a portfolio manager at the financial company AN All New Investments. I am also a columnist and author of books. Today, in this presentation, because the conditions in Europe have recently changed significantly, we will discuss the new strategy that pension funds need to follow when investing in Europe. Also, we'll discuss their role in investing in the European Union. Some primary conditions in Europe require a comprehensive review of risk and investment opportunities in the continent. Actually, the revision that we need to do is because in Europe, there are three conditions that are leading to a historical juncture. Historical junctures, when they occur, are of great importance because they have the ability to change the course we follow. So in our case, the three conditions that link to a historical juncture in Europe change the course of the European Union, change its prospects, and therefore change the outlook in the strategy of pension funds investing in Europe. The first of these conditions concerns the European integration. What is remarkable is that today the European Union is entirely different from the Union it was just a few years ago. Because today Europe is more interconnected than ever in its thousands of years of history. European integration began with a single currency, was introduced in 2001, but the real integration happened with the financial crisis of 2008, when Mario Draghi said, so remember the historical phrase, the ECB is ready to do whatever it takes to preserve the euro, and he said, believe me, it will be enough. From that time, from this day, Europe has changed possibly forever. Since then, important decisions by policymakers have changed the rules in Europe, decisions made with enormous importance, which, however, may not yet be understood by most, including investors. Let's see some of these crucial decisions made by policymakers in the European Union. For example, due to the COVID-19 pandemic impact, the ECB bought around 1.7 trillion euros of bonds under the program, the Pandemic Emergency Purchase Program. So funding was offered to all member states for as long as needed. Also, and most important, at the end of the pandemic, ECB approved the establishment of a transfer protection instrument, the so-called TPI, where it can buy bonds regardless of the specific weight of the members of the euro. This action is very important because, in fact, ECB introduced the mutualization of European debt. Also, and lastly, the European Union is issuing debt of 800 billion euros through the Next Generation EU plan. The interesting thing is that to finance it, the European Commission borrows from the capital markets on behalf of the EU. This means that after a long debate, Eurobonds are a new reality in the European Union. However, treating the EU as an entity through economic integration leads to the need to see it as a fully integrated entity. In reality, this is already happening since the opportunity was given with the climate crisis and the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine with the climate crisis revealed the second condition that constitutes Europe's historical juncture. This condition concerns how Europe will move towards energy dependence from fossil fuels due to climate crisis and energy dependence from countries and regions with which Europe does not share the same values. According to Bloomberg European Energy Transition Outlook in 2022, investment opportunities in renewables are up to 5.3 trillion euros. Investments in renewable energy sources must double in the next 5 years compared to the previous 5 years. But the transition in green energy is not only aimed at reducing emissions due to climate crisis. I believe an equal, if not more, meaningful goal for the Europeans is their independence from energy suppliers that do not share the same values with the European Union. The war in Ukraine has made it clear that Europe must be dependent of regimes like Russia, which covered actually in 2020 around a quarter of each energy needs. The bad news is that Europe depends on authoritarian regimes like Russia, not only of its energy supply, but also for other crucial supplies affecting security and defense in Europe. So the need for Europe to upgrade security and defense is the third critical condition shaping Europe's historical juncture. So the war in Ukraine, in fact, has mobilized European nations to think more seriously about Europe's security and defense. Because of the war, most of Central and Eastern European countries have announced an increase in defense spending by tens of billions of euros. If member states achieve the NATO target of 2% of GDP, then for 22 EU countries that are members of NATO, the amount of defense spending will reach at current prices more than 300 billion euros per year. But Europe has significant problems in its defense planning at the most critical issue concerning European security. The point is that the European Union has created dependencies with countries that have all tend to have authoritarian regimes for state-of-the-art technologies related to security and defense, such as cybersecurity and 5G networks. So to summarize, what do we have? We have a historical juncture with three conditions: European integration, the need for European energy independence, European upgrade in matters of security and defense. What is crucial is that these three conditions interact with each other. This means that these conditions will inevitably continue to exist long term, which means that they are setting the new long-term course for Europe to follow. So, having this in mind, we can now determine the long-term investment strategy of pension funds investing in Europe. So, let's see some examples of the way pension funds could invest in Europe. most pension funds invest a large part of their assets in government bonds. With European economic integration in full swing, with the ECB guaranteeing government bonds from Eurozone members, investment managers of pension funds investing especially in Eurozone can choose those government bonds with a high yield. For example, Italian sovereign bonds. They can also invest in the Eurobonds issued on behalf of the European Union to finance the next generation EU plan. Next, inflation will remain the top issue for Europe. Inflation will stay at high level, cause to shortages in goods the European Union imports, like energy and agricultural goods. Shortages shift the supply curve to the left of the supply-demand curve, which means that European Union leads to recession or to stagflation. So, what do we need to do to avoid this situation? Pension funds managers should play the crucial role that needs to play in changing this situation in Europe. This means they should aggressively invest in renewable energy sources, also invest in sustainable agricultural production for Europe to be independent and avoid shortages of crucial goods, thus pushing inflation down. Also, the European Union is required to upgrade its defense and security. Pension funds will be required to take a leading role in achieving this goal. Pension funds need to invest in the European defense industry with state-of-the-art security technologies. The point is that Europe cannot afford to make the same mistakes it made with energy. It cannot rely on third countries to develop critical security and defense technologies. Europe cannot afford to be naive about this. The European Union needs to invest significant funds through pension funds in the security of the Union with a holistic approach, investing in renewables, also state-of-the-art technologies, cybersecurity, and 5G to improve its security and its defense. It should also, through significant investments, secure its supply chain by investing its regional influence with programs such as the strategy with Africa, which aims to promote economic, political, and cooperation in the field of energy, security, and raw materials from Africa. Actually, this investment also aimed to counter the expansion of Chinese influence in Africa.
Nikos, we've got about 5 more minutes left, but I mean, isn't it necessary for these pension funds to get returns? I mean, if you're investing in, military buildup and energy infrastructure, I mean, those seem to be very long-term projects, and I'm not sure when the payoff happens from them. When, I mean, energy importing is very, inexpensive if they have the right political will.
Yeah, this is the only way for European pension funds. I think it's de facto to invest in this area of green and digital transition or strategic defense and security. So via bonds and equity markets, the pension funds, it's the only way to create value for European economy, to generate at the same time positive returns on their portfolios, because we are in the time that inflation and low growth expectations make the net positively increasingly difficult. So I do believe that this is the way for pension funds is to invest in the European integration, because as I mentioned before, the Europe has already the trade, so they should invest, for example, in sovereign bonds or in other bonds in Eurozone countries, because ECB guarantee government and sovereign and some corporate bonds. So the pension funds must invest on energy dependence in Europe, because in Europe there's a huge problem on energy. We need to spend trillions of euros, trillions of dollars every year. So it's a must for pension funds to invest.
So maybe there's another way to put the question, Nikos. Maybe the way to put the question is, how is Europe? I mean, is Europe in a recession right now?
Technically, yes, but because of shortages, I insist that if you have shortages of energy, then as I mentioned, the supply curve left goes to the left. So for this reason, we do have a technically recession or stagflation. So
the pension funds are adversely affected by the recession, correct?
Pardon?
The pension funds are adversely affected by the recession.
Yes, that's why they need to invest on first of all to get some good results in the coming quarters, and secondly to support all this effort that Europe needs to do in order to get out of this hard situation. Because in Europe the situation is very hard. It's very hard because of energy, because of the crisis in energy. So we need to invest, and because of defense and security and defense.
Yes, I understand the general political issues. So I guess, so maybe another way to put it is that the pension funds are denominated, I guess, all in euros. Is that correct? Is that how they're denominated? And the euro is at parity with the dollar? Is that, I mean, is that correct? Is the euro at parity with the dollar?
Yes.
So that signifies a drawdown of about 20% to 30% on the euro, on the pension funds, because of the exchange rate?
Yes. Regarding euro, I think that if you see the European Union as a whole, as an entity, that you can see that the debt to GDP ratio in the European Union is about 90% compared to 130, close to 130% to United States. So I do believe that it's a more the European Union, the pension funds, they can invest on bonds in European Union, because the European Union can get lower interest rates, because as I mentioned, they do have a lower debt to GDP ratio compared to US dollar. So Europe doesn't have a problem with a huge debt because of the Germany, Austria, Scandinavia, because they do have a low debt to GDP ratio. They support European Union, and they are the power engines in the European.
Fantastic. Well, listen, this is really great. Thank you so much.